What is the quickest way you've seen someone fuck their life up? Guy did heroin at a party in high school in a rural area. Got caught. Got clean before 18. Got into construction. Worked his way up the chain. Owned several companies. 2 beautiful houses. Beautiful wife. Twisted his knee on a job site. Went in for knee surgery. Didn't disclose he'd been an addict 30 years prior. Thought 30 years clean removed him far enough. The painkillers they gave him brought the addiction back in full force. He returned to using heroin and stopped running his construction businesses and working to persuade being high. His wife took the kids and left him for being emotionally absent. And he defaulted on his mortgages and lost his 2 homes. He lost everything and ended up living out of his car. What's the most you've seen someone be so out of touch with reality? My dad collects coins. Because his extremely Hungarian immigrant grandfather convinced him that the bank capitalizing it because to him, all banks are just one huge world bank is determined to steal all his money from him. So he has to have a backup plan. This in and of itself isn't too extreme. Plenty of people choose self-sustenance due to a distrust in government and economics. But the real kicker happened when he tried to roll his coins. He has to order his coin rolls online because he doesn't want to go to the bank and get coin rolls because then the bank will know how much money he's hiding from them. I'm not kidding. Anyway, he ordered a bag of coin rolls and waited about a month for them to come before he started getting curious where they were. He asked my mom to check the order tracking while he was at work one day. Which led to this conversation. Mom. It says here that the package made it to town we live in 2 weeks ago. But got sent back. It says you gave no delivery address. Dad. Yeah. Why would I do that? I don't want them to know where I live. They might tell everyone. What was the cruelest punishment you ever got growing up? I was not specifically being punished, but it was a bit traumatic as a kid all the same. In the small African town I grew up in, lethal injection was available as a punishment. By snakebite, a neighbor was convicted of a capital crime. He was to be bitten on both ankles by a puff adder, and returned to his home under the watch of a guard to die with his family. I came to find it was not a mercy. I could hear his screams and cries from our own home. His wife was allowed to comfort him and provide water to drink, but not to help soothe the agony. He was cuffed to a restraining reclining chair and couldn't move. He finally died on the 3rd day. If he had lasted much longer they would have administered a 3rd and 4th bite. I wasn't scooping my cat's litter box frequently enough, so my parents shot and killed my cat, then made me bury her. My dad told me he was leaving because of me, then he made me watch him pack and he made me ride with him to where he actually left. Lol. Traumatized me. Making me sleep in the henhouse with the chickens, and then straight to school in the morning with no change of clothes. I got beaten the hell out of me by my father. Went to hospital for about 5 days. My face was black and yellow.
What's the scariest true story you've heard or told? I've told this story before. I'm an eye doctor and I had a patient come to me with an infected eyelid. 2 other eye doctors tried to treat and failed. They were dumping all sorts of medicine into it and it wasn't getting any better. At this point, it was swollen and painful for weeks with no improvement despite being on tons of meds. Apparently, neither of them thought to flip the lid upside down. You know that gross trick some kids do with their upper eyelids? It was a painful maneuver for her very swollen eyelid. Which might explain it. Anyhow, there appeared to be what looked like a visible abscess inside the tissue with thick gooey material. I thought I'd give it a nudge and saw it move. This wasn't an abscess. It was something else. I managed to remove it quite easily in one whole piece. It was a fly larva. The patient told me that she had a bug hit her in the eye a few days before she got this infection. I removed the larva and within 2 days the wound closed and she was 100% recovered on basic antibiotic eye drops.
What is the douchiest worst thing you've ever seen someone do to their significant other in public? I was at a LAN party that my friend was hosting and there was about 10 of us there. One of our friends brought his girlfriend, but wouldn't let her play with us. We kept feeling awful, so I just ended up giving her my controller and letting her play. He goes crazy, smacks the controller out of her hand, and tells her to stop bothering us. She tears up and tries to leave, but he talks her into staying. I have no idea why he wants her there to just sit around and do nothing. He later on tries to pull down her top and feel her up in front of all of us. I ended up driving her home and she broke up with him. We didn't talk to him for like 4 months after that. Seen a dude hit a girl at a party once. Never seen so many large dudes come out of nowhere to wreck someone's shit. I was still processing the fact that he hit a girl while he was getting pummeled by 10 plus dudes. Twice in 3 weeks I've had to call the cops due to guys beating on their girlfriends outside the bar where I work. Both cases the couples were very young, 20-22-ish, and it was obviously not the first time it had happened. Makes me so depressed to hear the repeated but he really is a nice guy, while the police interrogates to dude. Sigh.
Redditors who have had stalkers, exes, creepers, etc. What's the craziest, scariest thing that happened? My ex had a stalker for 2 years. 1 year before I met her and during the first year that we dated. He would never do anything too drastic, a few phone calls here and there with no speaking. Following her, making her feel uncomfortable. And whenever we called the police they said there was really nothing they could do, due to the lack of evidence. Really the final straw was when he kicked in the door while we were home. The alarm system scared him off, but we called the police per usual and they said they would look into it. I felt that they were taking too long with the whole situation and decided to take matters into my own hands. I know this is extremely dangerous now that I'm looking back at it, but I was a wild guy. Anyways, we devised a plan. My girlfriend would leave the house alone and she would tell me if he was tailing her. If he was, I would tail him. Well, he was. The fact that he wasn't in jail infuriated me, so I lost it and took matters into my own hands. While my ex went into the local pharmacy, he parked and waited for her. In a fit of rage, I walked up to his car, opened his door and beat the living shit out of him. I feel I went overboard because I'm a pretty big guy, and once he was on the ground I began to stomp his jaw, which in turn unhinged it. I told him if he continued I'd eventually kill him, and he returned. The guy who was stalking her was, get this, a guy who had a crush on her in high school. Not an ex, not a lover, but a deranged freak. I still have nightmares about the door incident to this day though.
Babysitters of Reddit, was there a time you had to call the police on the parents of the child you babysat? So what happened? My mom ran a day home when I was 5 or 6. One of the kids, who was a few years older than me, kept trying to play a game with other kids where they get naked under the covers. He also kept crapping his pants, like every day. My parents talked to him about it and wound up calling the equivalent of Child Protective Services on the parents. It turned out his mom's new boyfriend was violating him basically every day. It broke my parents' hearts. I'm not sure what happened to him after that. I hope he's doing okay. Don't know if this counts, but I used to work at a summer camp when I was a teenager. About once a week we would all walk down the street to the community outdoor pool. There were 2 girls, 5 and 8, who were very shy and stuck to themselves a lot. We only had them for about 3 days at this point. I tried to include them in games, but it was like they didn't see anyone around them and just lived in their own bubbles. One day when we were getting ready to go to the pool, I was helping some of the younger kids put sunscreen on their backs. I remember asking the younger girl if I could help her and she nodded. When I lifted up the back of her shirt to get her shoulder, she was absolutely covered in bruises and what I guess were cigarette burns, every inch of her back. It was the most horrifying thing I'd seen at that point in my life. I was 16 myself, so I went to my boss and showed her the girl's back. Her older sister was exactly the same. We ended up calling the police and they came and got the girls that afternoon. The shape of the bruises almost looked like whip marks, like they were whipped with a belt until it left insane bruises. It was so sad. Never saw those girls again. Boys of Reddit, what's the most unattractive thing a girl can do on the first date? Be on her phone the whole time, but I think this goes towards both genders. Be late without saying anything. I left after 30 minutes and I get an angry text 15 minutes later saying she's arrived and yet finally. Talk about her ex too much. Especially if that includes talking about how she still lives with me. Be obsessed with her phone. One of the biggest turnoffs I have ever experienced in walking out dates because of it. Act hard to get. It's not big or clever, it just makes us think like all the people there and anywhere else. Playing hard to get makes her hard to talk to. I have a sibling. They tell me how much nice one. I had a girl tell me one time, every guy falls in love with me. Big turn off. Ask about my salary. Tell me she engaged married to me. Also had a girl tell me her boyfriend is a good guy and will wait for her while she playing in the club with other guys. Tell you everything she hates about you. All the reasons you would want you to take her out even though she's too good for you. And imply if you're on your best behavior maybe she'll let herself in and nitpicking and criticism at the end of the night. And he doesn't know what you would do either. What's the cruelest prank you've ever seen? A group of girls at my high school told a girl that they were hanging out at one of their houses at 9 near a train station. But they really just made up a time and place that would make her stranded at the last train stop with no more trains home. In middle school, a girl came up to us on the playground and told this dude to go see the principal. He's looking for you. He got a call that your mom died. Then as soon as the dude ran away, she told us all she just made it up. It was effing horrible. Saw a guy tip over the porta potty with someone in it. That memory is clear. I think it was his girlfriend. A friend of a friend in high school had her boyfriend pretend that he died. He had one of his friends call her saying he had died in a car accident and had someone else calling up pretending to be a doctor from the hospital. She was hysterical. Later that day, after she kept asking the fake doctor which hospital it was so she could be there, she found out it was all prank to see if she cared. Horrible. Anyway, they broke up. To this day it's the nastiest prank I've seen in person. My ex-friend thought it was a funny prank to unalive my brother's hamster and tie it up and dress it in ridiculous ways.
What is something men think would attract women, but in reality it wouldn't? Talking about how many women throw themselves at you. Cologne worn improperly, as in sprayed on for a bit of nice scent, not like you drowned in it. And when you come near, drowning others in it too. When I was a kid I thought my crush would fall for me if I showed her something truly cool. How I could drink a glass of soy sauce without flinching. She didn't. Calling yourself an alpha male. I'm a dude and also work in IT. One time a dude self-proclaimed himself the alpha male. Needless to say he got roasted. We still don't know to this day if his ego ever healed. He was also told to come back when he's in at least beta testing. When men act really aggressive and tell you all about the times they totally could have killed someone or beaten someone to a pulp, but didn't because they restrained themselves. On the one hand, they look like a pathetic, cowardly jackass bragging about the violence they could inflict, but don't. On the other, they look like the kind of guy who will 100% be on the news for killing his girlfriend with a pickaxe because she disrespected him. Cringe. Terrifying is a bad look. It is not an effective pickup line to tell a woman that you barely restrain yourself from killing everyone in sight, because women are already low-key worried that every strange man trying to chat them up is going to kill them.